Hey everyone, my name is Austin, and welcome back to another episode of the Unfiltered Faith Podcast, where we seek fresh perspectives and unfiltered conversations to gain a deeper understanding of the world around us. If you're just tuning in for the first time, I'm so glad you're here. And if you've been here before, welcome back. If you like to take notes, I encourage it because today we'll be discussing some phrases people say that may come across as just dismissive. Although a lot of people may see these phrases as comforting suggestions, some may view these phrases as stereotypical Christian cop out answers that may inadvertently come across as dismissive and discourage genuine conversations. But first, let's define what spiritual bypassing is. Spiritual bypassing is a term that has gained traction in recent years, and it refers to the tendency to use spiritual beliefs and practices as a way to avoid dealing with our emotional issues, painful experiences, or psychological wounds. Instead of confronting our problems, we might leap to affirmations, positive thinking, or other spiritual cliches that keep us from fully experiencing our feelings. Let's start by breaking down the concept further. Spiritual bypassing can manifest in many forms. For instance, when someone faces a tragic event, instead of mourning or processing that grief, they might say, "Everything happens for a reason," to sidestep the pain. While statements the statement may hold some truth, it can also hinder genuine emotional expression. I cannot stress enough how important our faith and having faith is, and how it can provide immense comfort and guidance during tough times. But when we use these tools to avoid our feelings rather than to process them, it becomes a problem. It's like putting on a band aid on a wound without cleaning it first. Let's take a moment to explore some common examples of spiritual bypassing. One prevalent scenario occurs in the context of emotional pain. Imagine someone who has experienced a significant loss, such as the death of a loved one. Instead of allowing themselves to grieve, they might occupy their minds to keep them busy, pushing down their sorrow. They may believe that focusing on the positive aspects of life or visualizing love and light can protect them from the depths of their sadness. This only delays the grieving period and doesn't skip it, because once you've run out of things to do to keep yourself busy, your mind will have nothing else to focus on. While these practices can be beneficial, if they are used to suppress genuine grief, they become problematic. It's vital to remember that experiencing our feelings, both joyful and painful, is a fundamental part of being human. Emotions should not be avoided. They are to be felt, understood, and integrated into our lives. Another form of spiritual bypassing is the use of toxic positivity. This occurs when someone insists on maintaining a positive mindset at all costs, often invalidating the feelings of others in the process. You might hear phrases like, "just think of positive thoughts," or "you'll be fine if you just believe." While encouraging positivity can be uplifting, it can also dismiss people's struggles. Now let's consider the impact of bypassing on our relationships. When we engage in spiritual bypassing, we may inadvertently create distance between ourselves and those we care about. Imagine a friend confiding in you about a difficult situation. If you respond with this spiritual cliche instead of listening and validating their feelings, it can feel dismissive. Just let it go or trust in God may not provide the comfort or support they need. Everything happens for a reason, or just have faith can inadvertently leave us feeling unheard or invalidated. So, how do we recognize when we're engaging in spiritual bypassing? Here are a few signs to look out for. Number one, avoidance of difficult emotions. If you constantly steer clear of your emotions or dismiss others' emotions, it might be time to reflect on how you're using spirituality in your life. Number two, overemphasis on positivity. If you feel compelled to maintain a positive outlook at all costs, even when faced with adversity, consider whether you're using positivity to mask deeper issues. Number three, difficulty connecting with others. If your conversations often lead towards spiritual cliches without delving into personal experiences, It may be a sign that you're bypassing deeper connections. Number 4, shaming others for their feelings. If you judge or criticize others for expressing negative emotions, you may be projecting your discomfort with those feelings. As we navigate our relationship with God, we must find a balance between embracing positivity and acknowledging our pain. Spirituality should serve as a tool for growth, healing, and connection, not as a means of avoidance. So, how can we move away from spiritual bypassing and cultivate a more authentic spiritual practice? Here are some suggestions. Number 1, acknowledge your emotions. Allow yourself to feel your emotions fully. Whether it's sadness, anger, or fear, recognize that these emotions are valid and essential to your growth. Journaling or talking with a trusted friend can help you process these feelings. Number 2, practice mindful listening. When someone shares their struggles with you, resist the urge to offer quick solutions or cliches. Instead, listen deeply and validate their experience. Sometimes simply being present for someone is more valuable than any spiritual advice you could offer. Number 3, embrace the fullness of the human experience. Understand that spirituality encompasses the entire spectrum of human experience: joy, pain, love, and loss. Allow yourself to embrace the messiness of life rather than seeking to escape it. Number 4, seek professional support when needed. If you find that emotional challenges persist or become overwhelming, consider contacting a mental health professional. Therapy can provide a safe space to explore your feelings and resolve unresolved issues. Number 5, cultivate compassion for yourself and others. Recognize that everyone is on their journey. Just as you may struggle with difficult emotions, so do others. Approach yourself and those around you with compassion and understanding. In a world where opinions can clash and hearts can harden, it's essential to understand how our world and actions can impact those around us. We'll also explore how communicating our faith can foster community or create barriers. Let's first define what we mean by genuine concern. It's the kind of care that comes from a place of love, empathy, and understanding. It's when we genuinely want to see others strive, spiritually and emotionally. It's not about being right or proving a point, it's about connection. On the other hand, condescension can often creep in without us even realizing it. That tone of voice, the choice of words, or even body language can convey superiority. It's when we unintentionally imply that we know better than someone else or that they are somehow less worthy of understanding. The challenge lies within our delivery. We may have the best intentions, but we can easily alienate those we're trying to help if we're not careful. So, how can we ensure that our concern is perceived as genuine rather than condescending? Let's break this down into a few key areas. First, we need to focus on active listening. When someone shares their struggles or doubts, we must listen more than speak. This means putting aside our agenda and hearing what others have to say. Active listening involves asking open-ended questions and reflecting on what we hear. For instance, instead of saying, You shouldn't feel that way," we can respond with, "It sounds like you're feeling overwhelmed. Can you share more about what's been on your mind?" This approach values the other person's feelings and opens the door for deeper conversations. Secondly, let's talk about empathy. Empathy is about putting ourselves in someone else's shoes. It's recognizing that everyone's journey is different. When we approach conversations with humility and compassion, we create a safe space for others to share their experiences without fear of judgment. For instance, if a friend is struggling with their faith, instead of bombarding them with scripture or well-meaning advice, we could say, "I remember a time when I struggled too. It's a tough place to be. Let's talk about it." This way, we're building rapport. This way, we're building rapport rather than erecting walls. Another important aspect is consider our language. The words we choose can either invite connection or create distance. for phrases like you should or you need to can come off as patronizing, while what if and have you considered can open up healthy dialogue. Let's take a moment to think about how we frame our advice. Instead of presenting our insights as the only solution, we can offer them as one of many possibilities. This approach respects the other person's autonomy and acknowledges that they are ultimately responsible for their own decisions. Now let's shift gears and talk about vulnerability's role in our conversations. Sharing our struggles and doubts can be a powerful way to connect with others. It humanizes our experiences and shows that faith is not a linear journey. It's full of ups and downs, twists and turns. When we're open about our challenges, it can encourage others to be honest about theirs. This creates a culture of authenticity where people feel free to express their feelings without fear of judgment. Now let's look at the societal context of our conversations. We live in a world that often feels divided, and this can seep into our faith communities. Different beliefs, backgrounds, and experiences can lead to misunderstandings, and it's crucial to approach these differences with sensitivity. When we discuss differing, when discussing differing opinions, it's essential to acknowledge the other person's perspective. Even if we disagree, we can express our views without belittling theirs. We can say, "I see where you're coming from, but I have a different viewpoint. Can we explore this together?" This approach fosters a respectful dialogue instead of a combative exchange. Now, I'd like to share a few practical tips for navigating these conversations. Number one, reflect before responding. Take a moment to consider how your words might be received. Are you coming from a place of love or judgment? Number two, be mindful of your tone. Sometimes it's not just what we say, but how we say it. Tone can convey more than words alone. Number three, seek common ground. Find shared experiences or beliefs that serve as a foundation for your conversation. Number four, practice patience. Building trust and understanding takes time. Don't rush the process. Number five, be open to feedback. If someone expresses that they felt you were being condescending, be willing to listen and adjust your approach. So why does this matter? Why should we unpack what seems like a benign inquiry? Well, how we discuss prayer and its role in decision making can significantly impact our faith and how we interact with others. Let's start with some context. The phrase, "Have you prayed about it?" is often directed at someone facing a difficult choice, a life-changing decision, or a moment of uncertainty. It's almost a reflexive response from friends, family, or church leaders. But what does this question imply? First, let's acknowledge that the intent behind the phrase is typically positive. It encourages individuals to seek divine guidance and to rely on their faith navigating life's challenges. But what happens when this encouragement turns into an expectation? When is it that we might be unintentionally placing a burden on someone who is already struggling? One of the first implications we need to consider is prayer as a checklist. When someone faces a significant decision, they might feel compelled to pray about it simply to satisfy the expectations of those around them. This can lead to superficial prayer, ritualistic even, rather than a genuine conversation with God. Imagine someone reaching out for emotional support. They are navigating feelings of anxiety, uncertainty, or despair. When we respond with, "Have you prayed about it?" we might unintentionally dismiss their emotional struggle. Instead of validating their feelings, we may redirect them to a more spiritual approach, which could feel isolating. In essence, we need to be careful not to weaponize prayer. It's crucial to create a space where individuals feel comfortable expressing their doubts, fears, and questions without feeling that they might immediately turn to prayer, that they must immediately turn to prayer as the solution. Additionally, let's talk about the implications of prayer as a means of judgment. When we ask someone if they've prayed about a decision, we might unintentionally imply that a lack of worship equates to a lack of faith or commitment. This can create shame or guilt, particularly for those who may be struggling with their spiritual walk. Now let's shift gears and consider the flip side of this discussion. What about those who genuinely rely on prayer as their guiding light? For many, prayer is vital to decision making, offering comfort, clarity, and peace. But even within this context, it's essential to approach the subject with sensitivity. We need to recognize that prayer is not a one size fits all solution. Some individuals may not have the same experience with prayer. Maybe there's a season of doubt or feeling distant from God. In these moments, suggesting prayer without understanding their context may come off as dismissive. As we explore these implications, let's also consider the role of community in our faith journeys. In a healthy faith community, we should create an environment where people can share their struggles openly without fear of judgment or pressure. Instead of asking, "Have you prayed about it?" we might ask, "How can I support you in this decision?" Or, "What are you feeling right now?" This opens the door for deeper conversations and connection. It acknowledges that prayer is part of the process, but is not the only avenue for seeking support and guidance. So, how do we shift our language and approach to honor both prayer and the emotional realities of our friends and family? Here are a few practical tips to consider. Number one, ask open-ended questions. Instead of jumping straight to prayer, ask how the person is feeling or what they are thinking about their situation. This allows them to express themselves more freely. Number two, share your own struggles. Vulnerability is powerful. If appropriate, share your own experiences with decision making and prayer. This can help normalize the struggle and show that wrestling with these decisions is okay. Number three, offer presence, not solutions. Sometimes simply being there for someone is more valuable than offering advice. Sit with them, listen, and validate their feelings. Number four, encourage prayer, but don't demand it. Let them know that prayer is a valuable tool, but not the only one. Maybe suggest they take time to reflect, journal, or meditate if they're not comfortable with prayer right now. Number five, respect individual journeys. Understand that everyone's relationship with faith and prayer differs. Be respectful of where they are on their journey. So, what is it about these phrases that can feel so dismissive? To understand this, we need to break down the psychology behind them. Dismissive phrases often stem from a desire to alleviate discomfort, both our own and that of the person we speak with. When we encounter someone in pain or struggling, it's an instinct to want to improve it and provide answers or solutions. However, in our haste to soothe, we often overlook the nuances of their experience. Let's take a closer look at a few common phrases. The phrase, "Have you prayed about it?" may seem simple and well intentioned. Still, we'll uncover the implicit implications associated with this phrase, along with other phenomenon of dismissive phrases, expressions that, despite good intentions, can sometimes fall short and undermine the sentiments we're trying to convey. Everything happens for a reason. This phrase suggests a predetermined purpose behind every event, implying a divine plan at play. While this can be a comfort to some, for others it can feel like a minimization of their pain. It can imply that their struggles are merely stepping stones to a greater good, which can be frustrating for someone simply seeking acknowledgement of their suffering. Instead of offering this phrase, we might consider validating the other person's feelings. "I'm sorry you're going through this." Acknowledging their pain without trying to fix it allows space for genuine connection and understanding. Just have faith. Faith is undoubtedly a powerful concept in many religious and spiritual traditions, but someone who is struggling with doubt, grief, or uncertainty, this phrase can come across as dismissive. It can create a divide between those who seem to have unwavering faith and those who struggle to hold on to it. Instead of offering a blanket statement like just have faith, we could say something more empathetic. I can see you're struggling right now. It's okay to question and to feel uncertain. This encourages open dialogue and fosters an environment where exploration and vulnerability are welcomed. It could be worse. While it's often intended to provide perspective, it can inadvertently diminish someone's feelings by suggesting their suffering is not valid compared to someone else's situation. It can create a hierarchy of pain, where some experiences are seen as more legitimate than others. A more supportive approach might be to say, I'm here for you, and your feelings matter. This response affirms the person's experience without comparison, allowing them to feel seen and heard. At least you have blank. This can be a tricky one, but it's often intended to highlight gratitude. It can come across as patronizing when someone expresses grief or frustration. It can suggest that they should be thankful for what they have instead of acknowledging their current struggle. Instead, we might offer something like, it's okay to feel overwhelmed right now. You don't have to feel to put on a brave face. This allows the person to express their feelings without the pressure of gratitude weighing them down. Now let's reflect for a moment on why dissecting these phrases are crucial. Language shapes our experiences, our interactions, and ultimately our faith journeys. When we fail to communicate effectively, we risk alienating those seeking connection. We can inadvertently create barriers that prevent honest dialogue about faith, doubt, and the human experience. So, what can we do about it? How can we communicate with intention and empathy? First, let's practice active listening. When someone shares their struggles, let's focus on understanding their feelings rather than preparing a response. This can make all the difference. Second, let's lean into vulnerability. It's okay to admit when we don't have the answers. Instead of trying to offer solutions, we can simply be present with someone in their pain. Lastly, let's be mindful of our language. We can choose phrases that validate rather than dismiss, that invite dialogue rather than shut it down. To start, let's define what we mean by empathy and understanding. Empathy is the ability to put ourselves in someone else's shoes, to feel what they're feeling, and to understand their perspective. On the other hand, understanding is about grasping the context, beliefs, and values that shape someone's worldview. In spiritual conversations, these two qualities are crucial. They allow us to engage with others in a way that is respectful and enlightening. Instead of viewing differing beliefs as obstacles, we can see them as opportunities for growth, learning, and connections. But why is this important? Well, the spiritual landscape is incredibly diverse. People come from various backgrounds, cultures, and belief systems, each with unique perspectives on life's purpose in the universe. Engaging in conversations about spirituality without empathy and understanding, we risk misunderstanding, conflict, and alienation. Now let's explore practical strategies for cultivating empathy and understanding in our spiritual conversations. The first strategy is active listening. Active listening means truly hearing what the other person is saying without formulating your response while they're speaking. It's about being present and showing genuine interest in their perspective. To practice active listening, focus on these three components. Number one, pay attention. Put away distractions like your phone or your thoughts about what you will say next. Maintain eye contact and use body language that conveys openness. Number two, reflect. After the other person has spoken, reflect on what you have heard and what you want to say. This shows that you're engaged and helps clarify any misunderstandings. For example, you might say, "What I hear you saying is," and then number three, ask open-ended questions. Encourage deeper exploration of their thoughts and feelings by asking open-ended questions. Instead of asking, "Did you like that book?" you might ask, "What did you find most impactful about that book?" By employing active listening, we create a safe space for dialogue, allowing both parties to express themselves fully. This leads to a richer understanding of one another and can often reveal common ground. The second strategy is to approach conversation with curiosity rather than judgment. Curiosity opens the door to understanding. When we approach someone's beliefs with genuine curiosity, we signal to them that we're interested in their perspective, even if it differs from our own. Instead of thinking, "I can't believe they think that," try to shift your mindset to, "I wonder what experiences led them to this belief." This simple shift can transform the tone of the conversation from adversarial to explorative. Remember, it's okay to ask questions, and it's okay to not to understand everything. Acknowledging our limitations can foster humility and encourage others to share more openly. Now, let's talk about the importance of sharing experiences. Sharing our stories can be a powerful way to connect with others and cultivate empathy. When we reveal our personal experiences, we allow others to see the human side of our beliefs, which can create a deeper connection. However, it's vital to strike a balance. While sharing personal stories can be enriching, it's important not to dominate the conversation. Aim for a dialogue where both parties share and listen. This exchange of stories can foster empathy as we realize that, at our core, we share similar struggles, hopes, and desires. Empathy is often born from shared experiences. So don't hesitate to share your journey, but always do so to connect rather than persuade. Another crucial element is cultivating empathy and understanding is recognizing our biases. We all have biases, conscious and unconscious, that shape how we perceive others. When entering a spiritual conversation, we must acknowledge these biases and their potential impact on our interactions. Take a moment to reflect on your beliefs and how they might influence your perspective. Are there certain topics or beliefs that trigger a strong reaction in you? By identifying these biases, you can work to set them aside, allowing for a more open and honest dialogue. Additionally, be aware of the language you use. Language can be compelling, and certain phrases can evoke defensiveness or misunderstanding. Strive to use inclusive language that invites dialogue rather than shutting it down. Next, let's discuss the role of compassion in spiritual conversations. Compassion is empathy in action. It involves understanding another's feelings and also responding with kindness and support. In mo- in moments of disagreement or tension, compassion can help diffuse hostility. When we approach a conversation with compassion, we're more likely to respond with patience and understanding, even when we don't see eye to eye. Consider this. When someone shares a belief that challenges your own, instead of reacting defensively, ask yourself how you would want to be treated if the roles were reversed. This mindset can transform a potentially confrontational conversation into one of mutual respect and growth. Now let's touch on the importance of creating a safe space for dialogue. A safe space is where everyone feels comfortable in expressing their thoughts and feelings without fear of judgment or ridicule. Here are a few tips to foster that safe environment. Number one, set ground rules. At the beginning of the conversation, consider establishing some ground rules, such as no interrupting and respecting differing opinions. Number two, encourage vulnerability. Let others know it's okay to be vulnerable and share their struggles. Vulnerability can lead to deeper connections and understanding. Number three, practice non defensive communication. If someone challenges your beliefs, respond without becoming defensive. Instead, consider their perspective and express your thoughts calmly and respectfully. Creating a safe space empowers everyone to engage authentically, resulting in richer and more meaningful conversations. As we continue to explore this topic, let's not forget the power of silence. Silence can be a potent tool in conversations. It gives both parties time to reflect, process, and gather their thoughts. Don't fear pauses. They can create a space for deeper reflection and understanding. When someone shares something profound, allow for silence. This shows respect for their words and allows everyone to absorb the message. Silence can often speak louder than words, forming a deeper connection. Now let's address the idea of agreeing to disagree. Sometimes, despite our best efforts, we may not reach a consensus. That's perfectly okay. In these moments, it's essential to acknowledge the validity of each other's perspectives, even if we don't share them. Remember last week's la, rem, Remember last week when we discussed the different types of spiritual blindness? Well, one of those types is called cognitive blindness or confirmation bias. Agreeing to disagree doesn't mean dismissing someone's beliefs. It's about recognizing that differing opinions are part of the human experience. By honoring each other's truths, we create space for coexistence and understanding. It's important to stress that nurturing empathy and understanding in spiritual conversations is ongoing. Developing these qualities requires practice, patience, and a willingness to learn and evolve. Recognizing that every conversation presents an opportunity for connection, learning, and broadening our perspectives. Approaching discussions about spirituality with empathy and understanding can help bridge gaps, promote meaningful connections, and contribute to a more compassionate world. As we wrap up today's episode, I would encourage you to consider moments when you may have inadvertently come across as dismissive or said one of these phrases. We aim to cultivate an environment where everyone feels respected and listened to. We can foster a more inclusive and supportive community by practicing active listening, empathy, and vulnerability. I trust this discussion has equipped you with valuable insights and strategies to navigate sensitive conversations. Remember, the focus should be on building connections, not barriers. If you found today's episode beneficial, I urge you to share it with someone who could benefit from this dialogue. I encourage each of you to consider the language you use when discussing faith and challenges. And think about how you can be more deliberate in your conversations with friends, family, and even strangers. Let's remember that the objective is to establish genuine empathetic connections that allow us to journey alongside each other in our faith experiences. I hope this conversation has prompted contemplation and reflection in your own life. If you like today's episode, please share it with a friend. I leave you with this thought. Spirituality can serve as a beautiful guiding force in our lives, but it should not shield us from the realities of our emotions. Embracing our positive and negative feelings enables us to develop, connect, and fully experience life. I hope this discussion on spiritual bypassing has resonated with you and inspires you to contemplate your spiritual journeys. Remember, it is okay to feel, it is okay to struggle, and it is okay to seek. Until next time, keep seeking those fresh perspectives and unfiltered conversations to better understand the world around us.